SVC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Good afternoon and welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, brought to you by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. And today we're going to talk streaming and how regulatory changes from streaming platforms are evolving the space and just bringing us into a new era, and how the industry has reacted, how the streaming industry has reacted to these, the latest changes by Kick. I'm joined by Danny Lee of CasinoBeats and James Ross of the iGaming Daily, I guess, to talk about the podcast. Firstly, chaps, how are you both doing? James, how is everything?
Yeah, it's fine. It's a bit unusual being on this side of the microphone instead of your side, but no, yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, even to break down the fourth wall, he even takes a different seat at the table to be a guest rather than a host. It's very strange, but we're adapting on the fly. We're getting used to it. And Danny, you're used to being a guest on this podcast. You're a stalwart at this point.
Just about, yeah. I think my brain has already started to enter Christmas mode a bit this morning with setting up for this. But yeah, ready to go, ready to dive into it. Slot streaming is definitely something we cover a lot on the website, and it's certainly an interesting topic.
Well, you're 4 days deep into your advent calendar, so you can be forgiven for feeling a little bit festive. But yeah, we're here to talk about new regulations from Kick, one of the leading streaming platforms, and how streamers are adapting to these new regulations, just how significant they are. James, I guess to kick us off, there were a few new regulations that came out from Kick. One very focused on gambling. Can you take us through those, please?
Yeah, I'll briefly touch on the other two, because they're not really that relevant, but there's a lot more into them.
They do all form part of this creating a safer environment, though, right?
Yeah, they do. So the creators can now kind of limit their chat to viewers who have been registered with them for a select period of time, and this is to combat the overbearingness of bots, which people who are in the industry know what bots are, but if they don't, it's just non-entity people spamming their chats. They will also be removing the kind of certain clips that viewers can make if they're banned as well. If the viewers get banned from their channel, clips that they make of the creator will get banned. That's a new one that I didn't actually know about on Kick, which is quite interesting. But
does that impact gambling or no? Could do, right? A little bit.
Potentially, because it's more like ownership of what's being said. So not massively impacting it, but the main one is that from the 1st of February next year, gambling-related content is going to have a massive KYC enhancement, and it's going to have ID verification for all users who want to view any content which is 18 plus, which relates to obviously gambling, and mainly online casino and slots, which is prominent, and is probably, I think it's one of, if not the most viewed category on Kick.
Yeah, I mean, when I was on Kick the other day, it was the #1, the most viewed kind of subgenre, if you like. I guess my follow-up question is, when you say a massive enhancement, we're literally speaking about the introduction of KYC, right? There's not been any before, has there?
No, it is the start of actually protecting underage players on that platform, which ever since it launched post Twitch's offshore affiliation ban, which was, I believe, 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Kick has just been an absolute wild west of content creating with no rules, no laws, no regulations. It has been, to my point, it has been massively irresponsible. But now, we're starting to see some form of regulation, some form of safety now, which is nice.
So how much did that, off the back of the changes by Twitch, I guess just for context, if you could just intro the changes to Twitch that were 2 years ago, what did they look like? Yeah,
so before the change, I think it was October 2022, before the rules came into play, people could stream, if they were doing online casino, they could stream from any unlicensed or licensed operator site when they're playing their slot games. And they could also use affiliate links to any licensed or unlicensed operator. Now, post-October, that affiliate link and where they play their slots was changed. So you could only play and promote slots from licensed operators. So all these offshore crypto online casinos, which we'll touch on later, were a thing of the past. The Rubettes, which is littered all over Kick, couldn't touch Twitch.
Okay.
Because of these. And there was a mass outrage for it. Wrongly, in my opinion. But yeah, this is how kind of Kick formed. And Stake.com as well were one of those kind of affiliate links or operator sites which were banned. And that's another reason why Kick was created, obviously, because
it was created by the two co-founders of Stake,
yeah.
right? So since the actions by Twitch, pressure's just slowly been intensifying for Kick to kind of take more of a secure stance, more of a safeguarding stance when it comes to this type of stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, massively. I'd say that's pretty spot on.
All right. And Danny, so I guess that the real question here is these changes by Kick. Do you anticipate they will succeed in terms of reducing the numbers of minors exposed to problem gambling?
You'd think so, right? I mean, just bringing in KYC in itself, you're bound to reduce the amount of people gaining access to that content that shouldn't be gaining access to it. And I think that is so important. Like, this, streamers need to understand that if you're doing gambling streams, then you're part of an industry that can cause quite serious harm potentially to the people that are exposed to it, especially people that are too young to be being exposed to it. And that's what they're trying to protect people from here. And I think obviously there's going to be ways to like circumnavigate these changes and maybe like try and still find a way to be exposed to this content, or there could even be similar reaction to what happened when Twitch brought in changes where people start looking elsewhere for this type of content. But I think there's a strong chance that it will push them in the right direction, but you wonder how much they've been forced to make a regulation like this through like pressure from either the industry or just like regulators in general, or whether they're just maybe like showing that they want to protect them slightly.
Yeah.
And then maybe doing the bare minimum in a way. Like, we need to see how this process is going to work and how much they're actually going to enforce it.
Yeah, I mean, for them to say they've been forced to do this, I mean, this is a number one requirement, certainly when you're streaming. And if you look at the kind of, you mentioned here, like, how this is impacted kind of reducing exposure to minors, it can't get any worse. It couldn't get any worse to how it was before. Like you said, this is the first KYC measure they've introduced. But look at the streamers that they brought over from Kick. Like, I've got numbers here. You've got Trainwreck TV. He's got just under 350,000 followers. He started streaming Fortnite. That's how he built his population up. Then he starts streaming gambling. Moves over to Kick with absolutely no regulations whatsoever. His audience is built off those people who play Fortnite, and he still plays Fortnite on Kick. So they still have that kind of cross-pollination between video games and iGaming. You have it here, Neon's the same, Aiden Ross. XQZ, he's got just over 800,000 followers. He's the same, he plays video games and slot games, but he was also in the Sidemen football charity game, which included the likes of KSI. It included Mr. Beast.
That's like a young
Chunks.
audience, isn't it?
Yeah, all those people know him for streaming and follow him, and his exposure in that game was even amplified by the actual commentators, because he was woeful in net. But he streams content, he streams casino content, and he's got a massive young following. And before this introduction comes in next year, there's no regulations, there's nothing preventing those kids from going on to Kick and watching him stream this casino content, which is amplified by the winnings, because the money that, we'll say, allegedly the money that he gets isn't his, it's funneled through a offshore online casino who helps support him and boost him up.
Yeah, to kind of to just bring it back a sec, like when we're talking about the pressure, it did form part of a wider plan from Kick. You know, there's quite a sea of measures that they're bringing in, and it did also form part of their partnership with the Internet Watch Foundation to kind of just create a safer environment. But James, you raise an interesting point. I think the reason why this has kind of had such a backlash from streamers is because, like you mentioned, a lot of the streamers that really thrive in this environment aren't gambling streamers or slot streamers like we see in other verticals. They, like you say, they play video games, they do a whole host of things, they react to different things, and they also play crash games or play slots. How much is it going to impact streamers, forcing this kind of level of friction on them to not, I guess it depends how it looks, right? Are they still going to be able to view other bits of that streamer's content without doing a KYC check?
No, because everything's tagged on their streams. So if they're playing a game like Fortnite, they don't have to tag that
Okay.
it's a mature audience. It's a gambling audience. So they won't be prevented. It's just when they're streaming gambling.
Okay,
But
that's important, right? To the streamers.
That's massively
yeah.
important. And if actually Twitch introduced a measure recently, I believe it was last month, that it was a requirement for them to label mature content, and they were being a lot stricter on it because they found 65% of their actual streamers were tagging incorrectly. So they introduced this measure, and Ofcom, the UK's Office of Communication, they actually reported that there was not really any change. Post-change, there was a decrease in misleading streams as mature audiences. Labelling was more accurate. And like I said, the main thing is there was no change in stream viewership.
Yeah.
So this whole notion that they're introducing this audience and they're going to lose viewers. Well, you might lose viewers on your slot streams, but let's be realistic.
Those viewers weren't good viewers anyway.
You
They
shouldn't
weren't
have had
viewers for
those
that,
viewers
yeah.
in the first place. And
Okay.
it's quite idiotic to think that you should have those viewers. And actually,
Yeah.
these viewers to these streamers, but on the face of it, and this is just my opinion, they're just numbers to them. They're not people. They're just numbers who funnel through money for them
Yeah.
so they can make a living.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
Okay, I wanted to read you, there was some inevitable response from the streamer industry, as vast as it is. We had one from Exposed, big amount of followers. I just kind of wanted to read you this just to see what you thought. Kind of falls into the category of having come to Kick and, looking to thrive with gambling content. The sole purpose, this is from him, on X. The sole purpose to create Kick was for a place for gamblers to have the freedom to stream wherever they want and have a home to stream at. Now these guys at stake are losing streamers by the day and were forced to provide an extra level of KYC check to the website. All this shows is control over their website entirely and to make everybody come back to stake and promote only their product. So I just wondered, there's a little bit more, but I guess that's the essence of it. I just wanted to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, when you showed me that tweet from Exposed, I thought it was the most idiotic comment I've actually ever seen in my life. Like, there was a part where it says, like, a place for them to stream and a home for them. Like, you have a right to stream wherever you want. You don't have a right to stream to whoever you want.
Yeah.
That's the key thing, and that's what Kick are introducing now with this ban. Like, it's adding that other layer of player protection. And if anyone's got any disagreements with not targeting 18 plus content, this gambling content, then you're just idiotic, to be honest. You're just an idiot. I think there's a key thing that actually comes from kind of a comment like that is a lack of education and a lack of knowledge when it comes to actually player protection, certainly within the sector. I think it's on the platform Kick. I think it's on the streamer himself and the operators who are funding these streamers, that you need to educate who you're investing your money into.
100%.
I agree with that. That doesn't
Yeah.
happen.
They should pick who's representing their brand. It shouldn't just be a chuck it at the wall and let them go. It should be a case of, you bring these influencers in and then you educate them on your product and kind of responsible gambling. And
just on Exposed as well. Like, he's got 127,000 followers on Kick, and that's a big amount of following. And he's going on saying that we should be able to stream wherever we want to whoever we want. To have our home. Again, you stream content from slots and casinos, but you also stream Halo Infinite, which is I think it's like a 16 plus game, or maybe even lower than that.
Video game streaming is largely predominantly for a lower demographic.
You've still got the cross pollination of content from young people who want to watch your streams to online casinos. So introductions of measures like this, they may hinder you a little bit, but in the overall picture, in the grand scheme of things, it's for the better of your viewers and the safety. And this industry has done a hell of a lot in the past 10 to 15 years to really enhance and protect players using player protection methods and KYC tools.
You're talking about the gambling industry.
The gambling industry itself has done a hell of a lot. And if streaming's coming in now and playing a bigger part, you need to get in line.
Yeah.
You really do need to get in line and kind of understand what you're doing.
It does sort of make you wonder, like, how long they thought that this would last. Like, they'd be able to just stream whatever they wanted to whoever they wanted for years. Like, obviously, they had more of an ability to do that on Twitch until they brought in these regulations. Surely part of them must have known that this would eventually happen with Kick as well. Like, it can't just be like the Wild West all the time, just streaming gambling to, like, you wouldn't have a kid just able to walk into a casino, would you? It's not allowed. They're not allowed to be exposed to that thing. It's exactly the same. They're watching something that is going to maybe alter what they want to do, and you know, it's
worth noting as well, there is still a lot of creative freedom around what streamers can do. As much as there's going to be this level of friction when it comes to barrier of entry for a younger demographic, you're going to have to show verification. In terms of the actual artistic content of the stream, streamers can basically do whatever they want, right? They can be as creative as they want with the content.
Yeah, certainly. There's so much control that they do have, and it's like James is saying, that if you feel that the fact that you can't stream gambling to whoever wants to see it is a lack of control, then it's just, it does come across as like sort of irresponsible in itself, just making that comment. There's no reason why these streamers shouldn't be against young people, minors, being exposed to content that will be harmful to them and could convince them to make decisions and try and access these websites themselves. We know that some of these websites that these streamers are maybe gambling on might not even have KYC processes for themselves. You might just be able to log in just with an email, no age verification at all. There's a chance that minors can get access to these websites, and that's what they need protecting from. And if it means that you lose like a small portion of your viewership, then it should be the smallest sacrifice you have to make to protect people.
Yeah, that's offshore operators you're talking about there, right? There, you know, the protections might not necessarily have been in place that have previously had a relationship with the streaming industry. Yeah, and I think as we've seen the more crash games come into play, the bar has really raised on just how creative streamers can be with their content. I guess the question is here, we saw with Twitch that, you know, there was an exodus of streamers, right? Do you anticipate something similar happening here with Kick? Where do you think streamers could find a home after this, disgruntled streamers, or are they just going to have to adapt?
They're going to have to adapt. I mean, there was conversations, I believe, when Kick was just launching. I think, again, Trainwreck TV, sorry. They discussed about launching their own streaming platform, and then from this announcement, there was a few others who've said they would launch another one if that's the case. It reminds me of, and for the audience out there, you might not get this reference, the Michael Scott in the US office scenario. You know, when he sets up his own paper company, it's like, if the Michael Scott paper company goes under, the next day he'll just create another paper company and another paper company and another paper company. Like, no shortage of names. And that's kind of the situation that streamers will face, because you'll launch another streaming platform, but sooner or later you're going to hit that wall where you need to have play protection in your mind. You need to introduce KYC elements, or you're just going to fail. You're not going to expand. You're not going to grow. And to be honest, you'll probably have to close. Yeah. Because what you're doing, while it's not legal, it's immoral to a point of view. Yeah. So there will always be that kind of stumbling block or hurdle that streaming platforms who are new have to come to. So that's I don't see them starting their own. I think they need to adapt. They need to actually get in line with.
Could work directly with operators, maybe.
I think that's not a bad shout, and actually work with the gambling industry. Yeah. If you're streaming in the UK, work with the UK Gambling Commission. These are the things you need to get into place without actually throwing your toys out of a pram and thinking, no, we want all your ad revenue, we want all your subscriber, we want all the money we can get from you, and we want all this money from offshore online casinos like a Roobet to funnel our money so we can then get 25% of the earnings that we make, and then we give Kick 5% and the rest go to Roobet. Get in line, play the game, and stop being so idiotic and short-sighted.
Danny, any thoughts? You know, are we going to see streamers kind of try and play the game a little bit more? Not play, pardon the pun, play the game in terms of the policy game, I guess.
I think I don't think it's going to be a case of like maybe launching new platforms or new service or anything like that. I think there just needs to be a bit of an attitude shift into like player protection. And you mentioned education earlier, James. Maybe that's something that needs to be more broadly distributed from the industry itself to people that might be exposed to these streams and people that will be broadcasting them as well. But when you look at like sort of huge brands in the social media game like YouTube, there's always been troubles with people creating content on that. If you look back like 15, 20 years, different regulations that have come in terms of what you can sort of record, what you can say, what words you can use. But they've sort of evolved and they've worked with creators to make it still a platform that is respected, still used, and obviously is still successful. So I think if they can just accept these changes, realise that it is a good thing. Obviously, it might be negative for some of the streamers individually in the short term in terms of that viewership, but that should be considered a positive change. They shouldn't want to have those viewers in the first place. It is irresponsible and it does need to stop.
Yeah, I agree. And there's very little infringement on, if any, infringement on the actual content they're putting out. I kind of echo that sentiment because I think it's important that the content they're putting out is not being changed. It's just a barrier of entry for those that are most vulnerable to being exposed to it. And yeah, I tend to agree. It will be interesting to see how streamers play ball. There's a big pool of streamers now as well. We've seen kind of it be expanded to sports ambassadors and just various ambassadors. You know, like we've seen Drake being one of the biggest streamers in the world, really playing with stake and playing kind of roulette and stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. The next 5 years, we see constant evolution in how streamers interact with the industry. This news hasn't gone over well for a lot of streamers, but yeah, what do the next 5 years look like? And I think especially as Brazil opens up, where I think streaming will play an important role, and also as the slots industry continues to just grow and grow in terms of engaging games that it puts out, it does provide a deeper toolbox for streamers to play with. So yeah, what do the next 5 years look like for streamers? Any predictions? Apologies for the general question, by the way.
No, it's fine. I'll break it down into two because I know we're running out of time. So streaming in general is, I think in the next 5 years, maybe 10, is going to be the main form of how like the younger generation consume their content. And if it's anything, if you look at when we were growing up, Joe, we kind of show our age here a bit, like sitting in front of the TV, you know, watching football at the weekend, watching cartoons in the morning, like that was how we grew up, coming up home from school, sitting down, watching some Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon if you're from the UK. Like that's how we engage content. Growing up now, I've got a 6-year-old nephew who watches YouTubers all the time. That's all he watches. And I think in the next 10 years, streaming is going to be kind of that mass consumption. So I think it's going to be more kind of on a broadcast scale, which is why they need to get in line. And
so you're talking here for not 6 to 10-year-olds. You're talking as they get older, the generation that is relevant of adults are still going to be engaged with streaming.
I even think some of the 18-plus-year-olds now grew up on streamers. So in the next 5 to 10 years, who are you going to get? The 10-year-olds and like the 15-year-olds of this world now. That's going to be their form of entertainment. That's going to be what the media that they consume. Now, if you bring that to kind of gambling, we're going to see an even bigger like influx of streamers actually contributing more and having their own studios and releasing their own games. We've already seen it this year when Fruity Slots and Hideous Slots teamed together to make Dreamspin, and they're releasing their own games now, and it's going to operator sites, and they've got a lot of success with that. We're going to see a lot more of that, and they're going to have so much more of an impact when it comes to certainly the slot development creation world. And Danny, you're going to be covering a hell of a lot when you come to CasinoBeats. But that's how I think the industry is going to evolve, because these players know their games. They know what audiences want. They know what keeps people entertained. They know what keeps people engaged, and that's the key one, engaged. They have all the analytics for this. So why not let them create games? Because they will create the successful games.
And a good example with Fruity Slots as well. Yeah, it's really interesting. And just to kind of echo your point about this new generation of adults still engaging with streaming or that type of content, there's some of the sports broadcasts I've watched recently, there's been alternative streams where you don't have kind of colour, your standard colour commentary. You have kind of 3 or 4 podcasters alongside influencers, and you're still watching the show, but they're coming in and kind of talking in a more informal podcasty type way in an alternative stream. So that kind of lends itself to what you're saying about a generation of adults has been brought up on streaming, and that's what they want from their broadcast. And Danny, to close us off, your 5-year plan for the streaming industry, what does it look like?
I think if we just bring it completely into iGaming, James is right. Like, we're just going to see so many more of these like new games or different partnerships between streamers and either operators or suppliers. We've already seen the growth of live spins a lot in the past sort of year and a half, and how that's getting integrated into more and more operator lobbies, and how streaming is definitely being appreciated so much more each sort of few months. We're seeing different developments, and it's just, you can just see it continuing. And I mean, streaming is so huge at the minute, you can't like scroll through like Twitter or Instagram or anything like that without seeing clips from different streamers, and they're getting such a huge consistent viewership that it's bound to keep being capitalized on. Agree wholeheartedly. I do think though that there needs to be some type of willingness to play ball in terms of player protection, especially when it comes to minors, and protecting minors from being exposed to gambling content if streamers are to continue to rise and continue to grow. So yeah, thank you both for your time today. I really appreciate it. It's been a fascinating discussion, and one that we certainly look forward to updating you as it develops.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News network, or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.